Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films. And I'm pre recording because I spent most of the day yesterday and will be spending a lot of the day today moving films out of the archive into another space so we can do some renovation work. So we make the space safer for films and safer for people and things like that. Anyway, so before I came on, you saw like kind of a quick tour of the archive, and that was from a couple of years ago. And I'm going to show you some stuff that we shot on Friday as a kind of a comparison to what has been cleaned out, and then I'll periodically show you more stuff. And then after that, we're going to watch some films about LSD. So we're going to watch LSD-Narcotics, LSD Insider Insanity, and then Mindbenders, which is a new one. Because why am I showing films about LSD? Well, it just blows my mind to see what we've done so far, and hopefully you'll enjoy these films about drugs. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, hit the like. You can also go to patreon.com/avgeeks or ko-fi.com/avgeeks, or just use the super thanks button to send us some cash, and we will spend that on some bottled water or something, because I have to stay hydrated. It's very warm outside, and moving films is a lot of strenuous work. So anyways, I'll have more updates for you. I hope everybody has a great Tuesday, and tune in. Wait a minute. What is it? Tune in, turn on, drop out. Yeah, tune in, turn on, drop out. Whatever. All right, I'll see you guys. Bye. So this is as of Friday. It's very dark. You can't see. We still have all of our small pluses and some equipment. We have all of our smalls. These are 400-foot reels, which are up to 11 minutes, and there are several thousand of these. But the big headway that's been happening is our medium room, which is 800 foot. We've cleared out a bunch. And a lot of this is going to be gone today. So we'll just keep status. Next week is going to be a lot of just moving films.
The hallucinogens are drugs whose primary effects are on the mind, so they are frequently called psychedelic. They include mescaline and psilocybin. The best known is lysergic acid diethylamide, derived from a fungus that grows on rye grain. Pure LSD is very powerful. 1 ounce is enough for 300,000 average doses. Extensive experimentation has failed to establish a medical use for LSD, but study continues, and the legal supply of the drug is restricted for use in these carefully supervised research settings. How LSD works is not fully understood, but it seems to change the levels of 2 chemicals that regulate brain function, serotonin and norepinephrine. Researchers have observed changes in the brain's electrical activity. Whatever the mechanism of the change, its effect is to interfere with the brain's filtering and screening process. The senses are overloaded, responding to a flood of sights, sounds, smells, and other perceptions entering the brain in unfamiliar ways. Synesthesia, a crossing of the senses, is common. Sounds may be perceived as color, or color as odor. The user can experience illusions, misinterpretations of stimuli. He can have true hallucinations, perceiving things that don't exist in objective reality. The user cannot control the sensations, and while they may be amusing or exhilarating, they can be frightening, and the inability to stop them may be extremely distressing. LSD's effect on the emotions varies from person to person. Even in the same person, emotional reactions vary from trip to trip, and depending on the circumstances in which the drug is used. People on LSD remain conscious, and they are able to reason. However, their sense of time is inaccurate, and they are sometimes distracted from the reasoning process by fascination with something else. Under a large dose, users frequently report great understanding and new insights. They often speak of expanded consciousness, a sense of rebirth, escaping from stale perceptions and frustrating patterns of thought. Objective research has produced no evidence that the use of LSD produces real or lasting changes of this type, nor that it enhances creativity. Still, many people have resorted to continuing use of LSD to sustain the feeling of greater understanding and insight. Studies of chronic LSD users indicate that even after the use of the drug stops, the sensory overload induced by the drug continues. This may be responsible for the observed decline in the ability to concentrate and think clearly. No one is yet able to say that chronic use of LSD is either harmful or harmless to the body. But the dangers to the mind are documented and significant, even for casual experimenters. A dangerous and not yet understood phenomenon is the flashback, a recurrence of the hallucinatory experience without another dose of the drug. Because of this, the user may fear that he is losing control of his mind. The resulting depression and panic probably account for most of the suicides attributed to LSD. Trippers make themselves the guinea pigs in an uncontrollable experiment, for substances purchased as LSD may contain anything. And even when they are LSD, they are of unknown strength. With severe depression and psychosis as the risks, people who gamble with LSD and lose spend a long time trying to regain their psychic stability. On college campuses, where claims of LSD's consciousness-expanding power led to the greatest interest in the drug, disillusionment with these claims and a growing awareness of the consequences have led to a decline in experimentation. But reports indicate that other young people continue to run the risks and suffer the consequences. Narcotics are drugs derived from the juice of the opium poppy and some other similar drugs. Some narcotics are prescribed by doctors for their analgesic or pain-killing properties. Any of them can be abused, but it is heroin that is preferred by narcotic addicts. People who take heroin usually have taken many other drugs previously, and they regard their first use of heroin as the final step toward a lifetime involvement with drugs. Heroin can be sniffed or absorbed through the mucous membranes. It can be injected under the skin. Most addicts mix the heroin into a liquid solution and inject it straight into a vein. Taken intravenously, it produces an initial rush, an intensely pleasurable sensation of short duration, then a high, a feeling of well-being, and finally, a dreamlike stupor. It reduces hunger, thirst, and the sexual drive. The user feels that it takes away his troubles. People use heroin for different reasons. They may want to hurt themselves. Its use may be an act of defiance or a cry for help. It may be the user's way of reducing what people expect of him and getting them to leave him alone. Anyone who uses narcotics regularly can develop physiological dependence, and with dependence comes the threat of withdrawal sickness. Most addicts eventually go through withdrawal because they can't get drugs, because they want to use lower doses again, or because they really want to quit. But most have a very persistent psychological dependence, and they frequently start looking for a shot as soon as the physical withdrawal symptoms have subsided enough for them to get out on the street. Psychological dependence on heroin is based on the drug's capacity to relieve stress. To the addict, one principal stress is the threat of withdrawal sickness, which a regular dose of constant strength will avert. But to achieve the desired mood change, the addict must gradually increase the dose. Physically and emotionally depressed, preoccupied with their habit, addicts usually get undernourished and become vulnerable to disease. From dirty needles and impure drugs, they can get hepatitis or blood infections that can damage the heart valves and the brain. If they get unexpectedly pure heroin, they can suffer from overdose. A lot of addicts wind up dead. If they are not trapped by illness or death, most addicts eventually run into trouble as a result of their efforts to support a habit which may cost them from $25 to $100 a day, or even more. Wherever addicts come from, once they are hooked, they find that addiction is a career, demanding nearly all of their attention, a life pattern that is extremely difficult to change. To help them change, rehabilitation programs have an enormous task. Some programs use regular oral doses of methadone, a synthetic narcotic, to eliminate the addict's craving for heroin. Though still addicted, they are more stable and can participate in their rehabilitation program without being preoccupied with getting heroin. Going back is a constant threat that can interfere with the best rehabilitation effort. To be really successful, the program must provide long-term assistance to the former addicts who need to put together entire new lifestyles, develop job skills, find new friends, learn to cope with the stresses that they may have taken heroin to reduce.
Well, if I was thrown out of bed, I'm not...
Scientists hope to find a practical narcotic antagonist, a drug that neutralizes the effects of heroin. A former addict taking the antagonist would be less likely to take heroin again, knowing that it would have no effect.
Better stop listening to people in this house, because what they're telling you is valid.
But eliminating heroin, by whatever means, is only the first step toward building a new life.
To 19-year-olds. But just like in the old days, teenagers have always shared one thing in common. They've always found a unique way to express themselves as individuals. And this, of course, would be called group self-expression. Today, just like always, clothes have been the groovy way of really expressing yourself. And teenagers can always be counted on to do something very original and very self-expressive. There's some girls who express themselves in the more simple look. Others do so in highly feminized slacks. And for hemlines, well, this may be the long and short of it. But how much shorter can a skirt get? Hair has always been very important. Yes, even with boys. It's been very short and even longer than a beetle's. But girls have always had a lot more ways to express themselves through their hair. Why, they could change its color completely. And they can even simplify the entire thing and just go out to a store and buy some hair in any color they like. They can curl it, they can wave it, and they can even iron it so it comes out nice and straight, split ends and all. Certain hairstyles may make it necessary to take a good look to see which is the girl and which is the boy. But that's not true for all boys, especially for those who are trying so desperately to prove their manhood. However, the more personal, the more individual way to prove your manhood was to play chicken. And at one time, a chicken run was considered the best way to prove manhood, dead or alive. For girls, the matter of being chicken and proving yourself as a woman is still frequently based on accepting this kind of dare from a so-called friend. Yes, even adults admit it. Growing up isn't easy, especially if you try to keep up with the dares and fads of some of your more advanced friends. Two of the more advanced fads have to do with drugs.
So why do you want to be down when you can be up? Please just try it once, okay?
Now there's a brilliant argument for you. Why, with the help of a good, kind friend, you can be turned on, I mean, blow grass, smoke reefers, or pot, joints, or Mary Janes. Those are just a few of the cool, groovy names for marijuana. And if grass doesn't make it for you, baby, and especially if you need to be... Now, everybody who takes it admits that there's always the risk of a bad trip, a bummer, a freak out. Yes, a kick in the head. Is LSD merely another fad, another dare, another kick? Is it insight or insanity? What do America's leading scientists, doctors, and psychiatrists working with people taking LSD say?
As we see it from a typical psychiatric ward, LSD is certainly much more than a mere fad. Right now, we have over a dozen people hospitalized because of acute symptoms resulting directly from their taking LSD. Bizarre fatal accidents and suicide. Because of this, we say that LSD is not just a fad. People are seriously disturbed, some even dead. What is LSD? How does it work? When did it all begin?
It all began in a laboratory very much like this one. In 1938, Dr. Albert Hoffman in Switzerland was looking for new drugs in the treatment of migraine headaches. He had been studying substances that came from the molds that grow on rye plants. Now, it turned out that these substances were of no use in the treatment of migraine headaches, but subsequent investigation showed that they are very fascinating indeed in the changes that they produce in our mental state. It was found that these substances could produce a change in mental state closely resembling some forms of insanity, in particular schizophrenia. However, more interest has centered on the very peculiar symptoms that the drug produces in the subject who is otherwise normal. Normal people react to LSD by seeing strange patterns of wildly moving colors. Time may appear to stand completely still. Faces may appear and then melt away. And at other times, the subject may recall with terrifying detail incidents that are long, long forgotten. At the same time, there is often a loss of the normal cause and effect relationships of things going on in the environment. And this leads to distortion of judgment. 1 ounce of LSD makes 300,000 doses. An amount of LSD the size of an aspirin tablet can make 3,000 doses. The normal dose is 100 micrograms. An experienced chemist has no difficulty in making it at home. However, we have found that this amateur stuff contains many other substances, dangerous and often deadly. The strength of this amateur stuff is always uncertain. It may contain none, or 10, or 100, or 300, or maybe 3,000 micrograms. We have produced convulsions and death in animals with large doses of LSD.
Nevertheless, in spite of the risks, the word was out. LSD was it. One pill and all unhappiness would vanish. The real meaning of existence would become quickly clear. Such nonsense. Parents, deprived of LSD, did not understand. Soon there was a great public outcry. Lysergic acid diethylamide was tossed out into the streets amidst a raging controversy. Because of this, the only legitimate company manufacturing pure LSD stopped. Many scientists felt that good scientific work was impossible in such a frantic mess. This is unfortunate because there are many basic questions about LSD which remain unanswered. What are the long-term effects in the brain of LSD? Does it cause permanent damage? Some doctors are afraid that it does cause permanent damage, but at this time the facts remain unknown. Many wild and very unscientific claims have been made about LSD.
I've spoken to a large number of young people, asking them, why do you take LSD? They've given me a variety of answers. The most frequent are the following.
I took it the first time because I was curious.
Under LSD, God's not a faraway idea. He's something that's right inside you that you're experiencing now.
I took LSD for a kick.
Man, LSD is like a vitamin for the brain. I mean, to expand your mind.
LSD stimulates creativity in the brain. In other words, it expands your thought processes so that you can take in more.
We gave a series of 50 tests to people before and after LSD. We found that at the end of 6 months following their LSD taking, that they were no more creative when we measured them than they were before they took the LSD. However, their inner feeling of subjective creativity was there. This means, perhaps, that they may have an impression of creativity, but not creativity itself. Creativity is 90% perspiration and only 10% inspiration. And LSD doesn't enhance one's desire to perspire.
LSD is a really groovy way to find out more about the things around you.
LSD helps me understand the whole world better.
LSD helps you to understand your own mind. It releases your mind to you.
LSD is a way about finding out about yourself, about your own problems.
What about the question of self-insight and self-awareness? Is it enhanced under LSD? Well, in over a dozen years of my own research, speaking with hundreds of young people and old, I found that their feeling that they had an increased awareness following LSD is not often borne out by their subsequent behavior. They do not seem to have changed their lifestyle for the better. Indeed, unfortunately, sometimes it is for the worse. On rare occasions, they may obtain valid insights. So often, though, all too often, they do not.
While there are many things that we don't know about LSD, there are a few that we do know. And perhaps the most important one that we do know is that it is absolutely unpredictable who will have a bad experience from LSD or when they will have it. Some people have a bad experience the first time they take the drug. Others take it 30, 60, or even 100 times before their bad trip. And the bad trip? Instant insanity, often a never-never land of no return.
You'll be okay. No, Tommy, no, get away. Get away, Tommy, get away. It's all right. It's going to be okay. Get away.
It's going to be all right.
It's going to be away.
You're going to be in the hospital. It's going to be all right.
I want to get I didn't take much. Somebody bum tripped me. Gotta get, it's a bummer. Gotta get out of here. Somebody gotta help me. Somebody help me.
This girl is obviously acutely disturbed. She will be in the hospital for a few weeks or a few months. The chances are that she will get well again, at least well enough to leave the ward. Whether she will ever be the same again, have the same personality, the same ambitions, the same abilities to work, to love, to get along with other people, that we won't know for a long time. Some others who take LSD will have even more tragic freakouts, and there's no way to tell which ones these will be. Many lose all contact with reality. For instance, some forget what height means, and in a turned-on or euphoric state, step or attempt to fly from cliffs and high windows with real-life, permanent, non-psychedelic results. Other trippers attempt to merge their being with large, fast automobiles.
Another uncertainty about LSD is this. We don't know how it works in the body. We don't know the normal chemistry of it in the brain. There are two chemical structures here. Serotonin, a normal chemical found in the brain, and LSD, which has certain similarities to it. But whether these similarities are important or not, we don't know. There's much work to be done. A good deal of important research lies in the future. Hopefully someday we'll have the answers.
There is much conflicting opinion as to why LSD should prove so popular with so many teenagers. Psychiatrists do have some ideas. One is that teenage is a time of life that's full of conflict. It's a time when people are struggling with who they are, what they want to become. A time when they're dealing with their own sexual and angry feelings. It's a time for rebellion, a time for experimentation, a time for dares, a time for fads. It's unfortunate, however, that LSD has proven to be such an in-fad. Unfortunate not because LSD is wicked or sinful of itself, but because it is such an extremely dangerous drug, a drug whose effects are so unpredictable, a drug which so often causes severe, long-lasting damage.
It's up to you. Taking LSD is much the same as playing Russian roulette. You spin the barrel with the one bullet in it, and you take a chance. Any one shot or several. Maybe an exciting and harmless kick. But each time you try, the odds keep growing against you. Until that final kick. It's up to you.
Chicken and square. Come on, baby, express yourself. You don't have to repress yourself, so why be lame? It's the hippest new game. It's just like Russian roulette when you're making a bet. A bet that you will swing just like any old day. It's like pulling the trigger. Without you never can figure that you'll get a kick in the head.
A great big end of your life kick in the head.
The word hallucination is defined as an apparent perception as by sight or hearing for which there is no real or external cause. From this word is derived the name given to a special group of drugs, the hallucinogens.
I don't usually see something that's an actual real thing that I could describe as, you know. Sometimes, one time I saw a lot of faces. Just all these faces appeared in front of me. And they were children's faces and oriental faces and old faces and just all kinds of different faces in front of me. And one time I looked in the mirror and I saw just my face just went through all these changes of different emotions and ages, and you know, I could feel all of the things that I saw.
Among these drugs, the hallucinogens, are included mescaline, a chemical taken from the peyote cactus, psilocybin, extracted from a variety of Mexican mushroom, DMT, synthesized from the compound tryptamine, and of course, LSD-25, a derivative of lysergic acid and currently the best known of the hallucinogens. From the very beginnings of unrecorded time, men have reached for substances in the world around them that would alter, extend, and materially change their perception of reality. The reasons? Loneliness and fear, boredom and a desire for the new and the unknown, exploration and experimentation. The reasons, as varied and as many as the grains of sand on a beach.
In 1965, because I was curious about it. I had several friends who had taken it, and they told me that they had, you know, very good experiences with it, and I was just curious.
Well, I was curious what I read and what I've heard, and if it could help, I was just looking for something.
Sort of because I had heard it makes you not only closer with yourself, but with everybody, this sort of love, peace type thing. And I really wanted to find out if this was true.
It was a kick. It was a thrill. You know, when I first started taking it, it was to explore myself. Well, I found I could only go so far before I just ran dead up against myself, and I couldn't go any farther. And then after that, I just started taking it for kicks, you know, just to do something.
Some have used these drugs to journey into the uncharted tunnels of the mind in search of medical and scientific truth. Others look behind the curtain just for kicks. Whatever the reason, the fact of the matter is the use of these drugs is on the rise, and it would seem valuable and interesting to inquire into cause and effect. Since LSD is the hallucinogen drug currently most popular and in greatest demand, we will center our attention here and later draw broad conclusions concerning all of the mind-bending drugs. As a starter, here are some hard facts worth considering. LSD is incredibly powerful. Eating or injecting even as small a quantity of LSD as 1/280,000th of an ounce can cause such symptoms as hallucination, distortion, panic, impulses toward violence, suicidal acts, and psychosis. Today, we know quite a bit about what it does, but very little about how it does it. Scientific studies have shown that the physical effects of LSD include an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, and blood sugar. These physiological changes are often accompanied by nausea, chills, flushes, irregular breathing, trembling, and sweating. Recent research on animals has shown that LSD may cause cell damage and lead to serious abnormalities and malformations in the offspring. In one study, 4 or 5 pregnant animals were given a single injection of LSD. The results showed early abortion, stillborn, and underdeveloped offspring. In the culture of human blood cells, it was found that LSD damaged the chromosomes in the white cells. In addition to these physical symptoms, there is clear evidence of serious psychological and emotional disturbances resulting from even a single use of LSD. The group use of the hallucinogens at parties is becoming a familiar part of the scene. An atmosphere is created, and mass use of the drug becomes the central factor in the lives of many young men and women. The problem is that while the drug is not physically addicting, there is considerable evidence that it can cause psychological dependence. So let's count the cost and take a good look at the results.
Remember once I wasn't using LSD, it was peyote, which is reasonably similar. And I was in bed with a young lady, and I turned and I looked at her face, and her face distorted into sort of a flesh-dripping monster face. You know, features became drawn and like jowls hung, and she grew fangs. And I quickly turned my head away, and I told myself this couldn't be so. And for about an hour, I wouldn't look at her face again. It was really frightening.
I could see all around me, no matter which way I was facing. It was just real frightening. I went into this survival land, and I was afraid everyone was going to go there, and things were never going to be the same, and that everyone was going to become real vicious and hateful, and just climb on top of each other to get what they wanted. And I never thought the world was going to be any different than that.
A lot of times everything vibrates. I look at chairs, and I can see the waves in them, and it's pulsating, vibrating. And this, everything turns into vibrations. It's like everything is falling apart. My eyes are an electronic microscope, and I can see all the atoms in everything. Everything pulsates.
took the acid around 2 in the morning and started reading this book. And there are sections in it that give instructions to a person who is dead. And they tell him to do certain things and hang on to certain things and let go of other certain things, allowing the experience to happen to you naturally. And in the course of that, I got very confused as to whether I was alive or whether I was dead. I mean, it was really very, very far out to just not know whether I was alive or dead. And so if I'm dead, what is happening? What's been happening with my life if I've been dead all this time? You know, what is the truth behind all of this?
All the results are not yet in. The evidence is inconclusive. The only thing we know for sure is that we just don't know enough. In carefully controlled experiments, interesting results have been reported on the therapeutic use of LSD with the mentally ill, the drug addict, the terminal cancer patient. And in the VA hospital in Topeka, Kansas, a special research program for alcoholics.
Well, this program was started in January of this year, where we began treating 5 patients for 26 days. We bring them in on one Monday, and they spend 1 week of getting acquainted, having all the tests and examinations done to keep them busy for the whole week, day and night practically. The second Monday, we give them a small dose of LSD in the 5-man ward together. This is to help the group pull together and in their group experience during this 26 days to also get some good from this. Then the third Monday, we give them a larger dose individually and have each one of them cared for by one of these teams who have associated with them, and they give them their complete support. And this is where we aim for the so-called psychedelic experience. It seems to work pretty well. Of course, it takes time to work through. Also, in this program, we bring these men back every 4 months for 3 days, and this follow-up is quite important.
Some of the things that are outstanding is I know I kept fighting the religious music. I didn't know why then, but Dr. Coran kept urging me to find out why I was fighting this. And I remember I was just literally scared to death.
The thing that affected me as far as the first patient is concerned was the openness which he talked with me. The quality also seemed to be more realistic than he has shown before.
Qualities in my head, the good qualities, of course, virtue, love, trust. And then I seen the other ones, hate, anger, distrust. I seen them all in my head, and it was like I was strangling myself, like I had to get rid of all the bad qualities, and I was strangling myself fighting against them.
And especially the looking at the two sides in his head in this process, these things were thought about rather deeply, and the thing that makes the difference here is the emotion that goes along with them.
And I just reached up, and it was like somebody grabbed me and brought me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I interpret this as, for the first time in my life, I wanted love. And I think this is the thing that was probably my biggest problem, is that I thought everybody was forcing it on me and I wasn't going to let them.
Yeah.
But it's not a question
I think from hearing this man report his experience that there definitely is a change as of now. As far as prognosis is concerned, time.
There are currently over 50 research projects in progress under the auspices of the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institute of Mental Health, all part of our continuing search to discover more about the hallucinogens. The questions remain. The mind-bending drugs seem to offer so much, but what do they really deliver?
As to what it has to offer, that's a difficult question, because what we've seen here have been some things that I don't think most kids thought they were getting when they took the drug. We've seen some kids that have had prolonged psychosis. Some have had to go to state hospitals. Some have been treated for 2 or 3 months and have been able to leave UCLA. Some of them have had severe depressions. Some have been very confused. And some of the groovy hallucinations and the colors that they wanted, they couldn't stop. They got tired of it after 12 or 18 hours, but they couldn't stop the colors.
How do they work, and what are the long-range effects of this drug on human personality?
Well, we don't know a great deal about long-range effects. People always are asking about chronic brain damage. What we do know, first of all, is that the electroencephalogram, or brainwave test, on this we see in electrodes that are on the scalp and also depth electrodes planted inside the brain, we see changes from LSD in man and animals after a normal dose, and these changes last from 1 to 2 weeks after administration. In addition, we also see the reoccurrences. You take LSD once, the effect wears off in 12 to 16 hours, then up to a year later, either with stress or without stress, without ever taking the drug again, you have the same reoccurrences. The people call them flashes or flashbacks. Reoccurrences of all the LSD symptoms in their original intensity. Certainly this implies that something chronic is going on in the brain.
Do these drugs really make possible a richer, more productive, happier life?
When we follow them along, what we're impressed with is their whole style of life may change. That instead of being involved in productive activity, they claim that they feel better, and yet this feeling better is alongside of a business where they've withdrawn from life, they're disregarding their personal appearance, they don't really care about how they function in the rest of the world, and they're involved in a kind of a pseudo-philosophic concern with life and themselves, with a real absence of contact with other human beings. So it's this interesting business of a kind of withdrawal and the statement that this kind of life makes them feel much better and more insightful.
Should the federal government exercise any control over these drugs? And if so, why?
It's a simple matter from our point of view that you can't let something get out into general distribution until it has shown some therapeutic potential. And it has shown it under certain conditions, and you can predict fairly well what's going to happen when you give this drug to a large number of people. This hasn't been shown yet, so we have to be very careful in trying to carry out the necessary research that's going to establish whether or not it has a significant therapeutic potential for people. If it does...
Questions that must be answered. And because we do not know enough, the United States government controls the manufacture and use of this drug in the interest of all the people. Like all the new drugs, the government feels that a reasonable degree of controlled scientific investigation must provide the answers. LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, DMT, and the other hallucinogens, the mind-bending drugs. Do they extend the range of the human mind, or do they simply offer an easy escape from the demands of this world and time?
Get up and make love and play the guitar and eat, go down to the beach and go swimming and occasionally write some things when I feel like writing and think about how I'm going to get a little more money to not starve to death. And
it gets you out of that whole intellectual academic framework that you've been taught to be in all the years that you've gone to school.
Not only emotional hang-ups, but social hang-ups. Don't do this and don't do that, and you shouldn't associate with these people and this and that. The things that, mores, you might say, that I was brought up with.
I get flashes of people seeing me. And it's kind of a schizophrenic thing. In a way, I want people to see me, and sometimes I don't.
I'd get up and I'd feel like someone had a rawhide band around my forehead, and it was just such a pressure that by afternoon I'd be crying. So every morning I'd wake up with this pressure, and every afternoon I'd cry.
Do they make possible creative achievement and a more valid and intense perception? Or do they merely substitute an unreal fantasy world for the sometimes harsh facts of reality?
Oh, yes, I think that I experience things much more intensely now than, I've hallucinated without having any drugs since I've taken LSD.
Had very vivid light experiences. Sometimes I went into lights that are brighter than the sun.
And I see patterns in everything, in dirt, in trees. There's patterns everywhere.
And right then, I hallucinated a fish that just came and swallowed the worm. And I said to myself, oh boy, this is it. This stuff is really as good as they say it is.
Drugs are going to flip a lot of people out and probably kill a lot of people. But if they haven't the sense to find out all there is that's been written about anything they're going to use, and if they haven't the discretion to decide whether or not in the final analysis they're capable of handling it, then that's their problem. They will flip out, and that's how it is.
Can they truly broaden and increase the life experience? Or do they rather contract the user's world until it centers totally and wholly around the drug?
Yeah, I was looking for a lot of things because I was really strung out at that time on not finding anything in life that was too interesting.
A great, great fear of being alone. Just, I could be with a group of people, but I couldn't communicate to them.
Well, what can scare you is that all structure can break down. Everything can become one, and that's sort of scary. Another thing that can happen is when you're really far out, things just can disappear.
Because as you suggested, I'm one, allergic to it, and two, I don't like to even entertain the notion that that sort of flip out may occur again.
I'm not afraid of anything anymore, which is, has good points and its bad points. I'm especially, not afraid to die. I became suicidal for a while, and every now and then go back to there.
The true potential of the hallucinogenic drugs remains unmeasured and largely unknown. The danger of lasting physical and psychological damage to the user remains an important factor in the rising use of these drugs.
I think a lot of kids say that at first, and then after they're through talking to Dr. Fisher and I, they change their mind, because we certainly think rebellion is a very healthy thing, and we like rebellion, and we think great changes in society come out of rebellion. And we think that we adults have kind of screwed things up. We haven't done a very good job in the adult world. With the bomb hanging over us in Vietnam, with our crazy ideas about censorship, our crazy sexual attitudes, our abortion laws, we haven't done a very good job. However, I do think that fooling with LSD is like Russian roulette. I don't think it's like swallowing goldfish. I don't think it's spinning a hula hoop or crowding a lot of people into a telephone booth. I think, unfortunately, this can be a permanent, long-lasting, damaging situation. So I'm all for rebellion. I think a great deal of good can come out of it. I hope people who are considering using LSD, however, will think of some of these things. We don't know them all. We do know a few, though. And one of the ones that we really know is that they may be damaging themselves permanently.
The facts of the matter suggest caution and a careful counting of the cost.